It feels slightly strange to be introducing a race day in the European Le Mans Series on a Friday, but that is exactly the situation we have for the 4 hours of Algarve. 2 races taking place here at the Algarve International Circuit across 3 days. And after some very much mixed weather conditions throughout the course of the week, we are about to get rocking and rolling with the grand season finale of the European Le Mans Series. If you've not been around for the whole of this campaign, we'll explain in detail in a moment why we are in this situation, but it's very exciting, and obviously there are an awful lot of points available for all of the 4 categories that we're about to see qualifying. My name's Johnny Palmer. I'm joined as always by Graham Goodwin, who's the editor of dailysportscar.com, and we're gearing up, Graham, for 4 doses of qualifying, starting with, sadly to say, the outgoing category, GTE.
Yeah, it is a sad weekend, exciting weekend. You had talked about the weather conditions being mixed, Johnny. Sadly, it's been mixed between being rainy and awful and absolutely terrible. There's not been any of the typical Algarve weather that we love coming here for the end of this season. But yes, switching to what's happening in front of us, that again tells a story. Wet track. It's been a wet track for much of the testing and the free practice we've seen so far. We've had sessions delayed, we've had sessions for other series cancelled, and it isn't quitting. It is still raining out there. Blue skies above at the moment, so this track could start to dry in patches quite quickly over what is quite an extended qualifying process here for the European Le Mans Series. But what you are going to be treated to over Friday, Saturday and Sunday are effectively 2 race meetings squeezed into one. That means a lot of track action and a lot for us to talk about.
The other thing of note for the GT cars is that these are the only category of cars that can run with an intermediate tyre, and that might be very useful indeed over the next 15 minutes for their session. So there's where we've been. 2 trips to Spain. We started off in Barcelona back in April. Then the Italian round that was planned for May did not happen because of upgrade work taking place at Imola. So effectively, that's today's race later on today at 2:45 local. We did, of course, then visit Le Castellet in the south of France, back to Spain to just up the road from Alcanis and Motorland Aragon. Spa-Francorchamps in its traditional date of September, although that changes for next year. And then 2 4-hour races here at the Algarve International Circuit. First of all, the 4 hours of Algarve, and then Sunday's race, the 4 hours of Portimão, so we can tell the difference. A reminder as well that this has become, in the last couple of seasons, a bronze driver-only session. So there's not a decision to be made by any of the 12 teams that will be taking part. And I noticed that, well, certainly the number 16 Porsche is going with intermediate tyres, and there are a great stack of them further up the pit lane as well. Unfortunately, if you're in LMP2, LMP2 Pro or LMP3, you don't get that choice. There is 1 wet weather tyre, there is 1 dry weather tyre. Here's the track we're racing on. What that doesn't give you a flavour of is how much up and down dale it is. That is flat as a pancake. I can assure you, if you were to walk it, if you were to bicycle it, if you were to drive it, then there are some corners you don't even see until you're literally on top of them. And that's why we love coming here.
Indeed it is. Already potentially, by the way, problems for JMW and Iron Lynx going to the fast lane before the race director's call. We can already see there, Johnny, standing water at parts of this track, so it will be tippy-toe stuff in the early part of this session at the very least.
1 minute to open pit exit for LMGTE qualifying session.
That is Lisa Vaxhart in race control. 95 TF Sport car, ready to go. Potentially, by the way, the one car that might stay next year.
30 seconds to open pit lane, 30 seconds to open pit lane.
Because that is a car that I believe...
The session, good morning to everyone, welcome to sunny Portugal. The session has been declared wet, cars with rain lights on. And again, please ask drivers to respect track limits. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. LMGTE qualifying session has started. LMGTE qualifying session has started.
The dulcet tones of Eduardo Freitas, who we will remind you is Portuguese and perhaps is a little embarrassed about the weather that we have. But it is October and we are very, very close to the Atlantic Ocean, where there's a huge storm. Storm Barbet has been working its way across and is battering not only this part of Europe, but also as far up as Scotland, the Shetland Islands as well. So everyone's getting it right now. And it's going to be a question of looking at the radar and then really probably ignoring that and looking at the sky, because it's going to change. It feels like it's changing every 30 minutes or so what we're going to get next.
You can see it's bright sunshine playing on top of the cars, but sopping wet around this circuit. The JMW car comes down the hill. I was explaining why we might see that Aston Martin back. Well, we've just seen the Evolution version of the Aston Martin Vantage revealed over the last few days, and that is a car that can be adjusted between GT3 and GTE current spec. So it may well be that we see that that GTE Aston Martin changed to the Evolution of GT3. We'll wait and see what comes out of what's going to be a really closely fought almost battle for who's going to get an entry in the European Le Mans Series next year. I can tell you absolute certainty, massively oversubscribed for next year. There's going to be a huge LMP2 entry and decent entries too in LMP3 and GT3, LMGTE of course, and all three classes, I can tell you, will absolutely be oversubscribed.
Because we've not been on air in between Spa-Francorchamps and this race meeting, we should update you with an adjustment, a major adjustment to the GT results at Spa, because post-race, the number 16 Porsche that won on the road was given a 10-second penalty. So it drops, therefore, to third position, and that gave the victory to the number 60 Iron Lynx Porsche for Claudio Schiavone, Matteo Cressoni, Matteo Cairoli. So with two races to go, today's and Sunday's, we're in a situation where the 16 Porsche and the 60 Porsche, not run by the same teams, remember, are on exactly the same points, and only split by the fact that there's a third place in there for car 16 rather than the fourth place for the number 60 car.
They are sort of run by the same team. So the Iron Lynx car is a Proton car and does have support from Proton, but you're right, there is certainly no team orders between those two, which is the crucial part.
Okay. As opposed to, I mean, we now have three Dempsey competition, Dempsey Proton competition cars, and we have had Dempsey Proton in the past as well. They were very much the same entity. I get what you're saying, though. There's a little bit of crossover between the two, but Iron Lynx, they used to run Ferraris, and there was no connection with Proton in those days.
Absolutely. And remember, 52 points still up for grabs in each of these classes, and that's a huge turnover could happen here. And, you know, particularly when you've got challenging conditions like this, what you absolutely don't want is damage right now.
Yeah. And a car we should certainly look out for in this session is the 66 JMW Motorsport Ferrari, because that's the only car. Oh, speaking of Ferraris, Arnold Robin is off the road. That looks like it's just pulled to the side.
No, that's not Arnold Robin. That's the wrong caption.
Sorry,
that's the 50.
Yes.
That's the Formula Racing car.
I'm getting confused by a caption.
Johnny Lawson.
Which is detailing the time that Arnold Robin is doing in this car, the 72, and Johnny Lawson. But I was also more concerned about whether there was any damage on that Ferrari. I couldn't see the rear right corner, but it did look like it had just pulled to the side, and I was also trying to work out where that is. Now, it's on the run down to the hairpin.
Yeah.
That now goes green as I say that, so he's clearly got going again. And, yeah, let's hope that he can continue on. The JMW car, as I was saying, is the only one to have repeated pole positions, but we are going to go with a red flag now, so that rather indicates that Johnny Lawson still has an issue. No,
it's not. It's Duncan Cameron, and that's at turn 1. Goes straight on, aquaplanes through, and my guess is he's gone out on the slicks, hasn't he?
Difficult to tell from this position, and the Goodyear Eagles are not differentiated by different sidewall lettering, depending on whether they're slicks, inters or wets, but there was certainly no grip as he was trying to slow and turn in, and that's a very, very fast approach, of course, because it's a long straight coming out of turn 15 and then actually downhill, so the main straight plateaus, it's dead flat as well as being straight to match up with the pit lane, but then as soon as the pit lane exit road feeds in, the track then drops away from you, so you're fighting gravity and you're also fighting the car that's desperate to go straight on rather than turn right.
No, he's managed to make it out, I think.
He has.
So, yeah, we have had dramas before at Turn 1 here, and it's a wise decision to ensure that all is well, but it will be rapidly back, I'm sure, to green flag running. Should be added, by the way, Johnny, as race control do indeed tell us session to resume on a short call.
Car 55, your car should stay out of the track as much as possible. Yes, he's doing it properly. Let's hope he doesn't bring much gravel into the track. Pit exit will open on a very short call. Pit exit will open in a very short call.
No one has set a flying lap yet, because that red flag came out just as the first group of cars were about to complete their first flying lap.
All cars on track should pick up the pace. All cars on track, please pick up the pace.
I was reading some regulations about red flag situations, and actually you can go at a maximum of 80 kilometres per hour during a red flag. I always thought it was slower than that.
There you go.
But 80 k's to get you back to pit road. Question remains whether Duncan Cameron can continue in the session, because he's caused a red flag. Normally that will put that car out of contention.
Yep.
But sometimes force majeure, it's kind of down to the race control team and how lenient, how generous they're feeling.
Yeah, all sorts of history having the line drawn underneath it in GTE this weekend. These are the last two races this weekend for GTE cars in Europe. Just Bahrain to come in the FIA World Endurance Championship. For the European Le Mans Series, this car actually has a part to play in a potential final stat of this GTE era that's lasted since 2011. He's off again.
Yeah, needed to be turning left there and under a red flag as well, and that's not...
But he was trying to follow Eduardo's instructions, come back as quickly as possible.
Yeah, there's a point as well, I suppose. Perhaps adding further evidence that Duncan is indeed on slick tyres, though. They were obviously going to be pretty filthy after that run through the gravel track, but he's just got a bit too wide out of the racing. Well, there isn't really a racing line because we haven't had enough laps and we haven't had enough cars circulating. And too much standing water on the outside there. I mean, he's on full lock.
Yes.
Full left lock, and the car's just still going straight on.
One quick piece of housekeeping. We did say that Eduardo Freitas had called for there was a potential issue for the 60 and the 66 for not following the race director's instructions, specifically going to pit exit, going into the fast lane before the call from the race director. Both those cars will have their fastest lap deleted at the end of this session.
Okay.
So that is the punishment, and indeed they're the same two cars at the end of pit lane again this time. To complete the other point, as we see the 55 come to a halt, the driver that's won most in the LMS history in GTE is Matt Griffin, who is, of course, a pro driver in the 55, with 11 race wins. Duncan Cameron, by the way, is usual teammate with 8. Christian Reed in the 77 car has 10. We have 2 races this weekend.
Yes.
If Christian wins both of them, he becomes the driver that has won the most in this class. He wins one, he could equal it.
Yep.
If Matt wins one, he will retain that little bit of glory into the history books.
16 taking inters off, putting wet tyres on. We still don't know the answer as to what Duncan Cameron is on, but he, at least from the team's perspective, has been waved back into the session. No radio message from Eduardo or anybody else in the race control office, so that seems to be fine. And I think the benefit of the doubt needs to be given right now, because these are tricky conditions. We had 3 hours worth of free practice 1 yesterday, and this is a chance again to catch exactly what happened to Duncan Cameron on his in-lap. So, yeah, just a bit too far right where there was too much water, and then you get off onto the white paint, the curb, and he will go hurtling towards the scenery. He did a very, very good job not to contact that barrier, though, at the top of the hill. That was turn 13, unlucky for Duncan, unfortunately. However, have they done any tyre changes on this car, or are they willing to persist, shall we say? The other difficulty with so much water on the track is that you can't build tyre temperature either, and you need certainly the slick tyre to be in a certain window. The inter will need to be at a reasonable heat as well for it to start to gain traction.
And, of course, no tyre warmers.
Yeah, that too, yes.
There's Richard Leitz We'll be talking to Michael Fassbender. His home circuit, by the way, Michael Fassbender lives not far away from here. I'm expecting for you and Johnny to be invited round for a glamorous Hollywood party at any point this weekend.
I think it's going to happen, Graham.
Messages are open, Michael.
They are, always, and there are 3 evenings that we could potentially make across the weekend. In fact, we're here next week as well, so, you know, any time, the phone's ready to be answered. Yep. Nose to tail here for Arnold Robin, who absolutely waxed the curb and amazingly didn't end up spinning or indeed clattering into the 66 Ferrari. Martin Berry's taking it far easier than Arnold Robin, who feels like this is the time to push on. Maybe the 72 crew at TF Sport have seen that there's more rain to come. Difficult to tell whether the rain is still coming down at the moment or whether it's stopped for a brief period. The sun is out though, so there's been a cracking rainbow above the circuit. Michael Fassbender, speak of the devil, goes a touch wide there at turn 1. We are hearing from Steph Wentworth in the pit lane that the rain is not actually hurtling down as we speak, but I think that's just going to be a small gap in proceedings.
There's a slight delay in that information from Steph because obviously she's far lower to the ground. It takes a while for that rain to reach her.
I'm going to move on from that. Very cruel. Meanwhile, here's the Aston Martin heading through the left-hander at turn 9. And as it goes to the peak of that incline, you can barely see it because of the amount of spray pouring off the car and also through those inlets that sit above certainly the front wheel arches. Big squirm from Arnold Robin as well. Now downhill through turn 12, the left-hander, and this is where Duncan Cameron made his slight error. Arnold Robin's going towards the scenery as well, so that might actually present Martin Berry the chance. Now I think it was all in hand actually from Arnold Robin. He deliberately went much wider than the natural racing line, just as he's doing through turn 14 as well, picking out the more grippy parts of the circuit, but that is tough to do at this stage because of the short, sharp shower we had just before this session. So heading out of the fast right-hander at 15, very easy for the car to swap ends there, so needing to nurse it through in the early stages of this very wet session, and Arnold Robin will go fastest, faster than Martin Berry, perhaps unsurprisingly, 2.7 seconds between them. Johnny Lawson, he had what looked like a mechanical problem in the early stages of the session, but Lawson sets a time now. It's a 2:10 to initially put him 3rd, but he now drops to 4th, 5th, 6th because more times are coming through, including from Christian Reed, who's not as quick as Arnold Robin, but he does go 2nd ahead of Takeshi Kimura for Kessel Racing and Martin Berry in this bright yellow 66. Sorry, that's the Kessel car, but the 66 is also bright yellow with a bit more black detailing on it from JMW Motorsport. And Berry, with his 2 poles already this year, looking for a hat-trick in the first qualifying session of the weekend. Incidentally, we don't have qualifying for these cars on the Sunday of this weekend. It's a sort of standard Saturday qualifying for the Sunday race. This is the unusual day where we're qualifying and racing all within the same 8-hour period.
Absolutely. Just 5 minutes to go. It is Duncan Cameron at the top of the times. Whether or not those times are retained, we'll wait and see. Looks, by the way, from a shot I've seen from one of the fine fellows at the FWC Discord channel that follow these things, that Duncan was on full wets before he went out.
Okay.
So thank you for that, gents.
At the start of the session?
Yep.
Right, okay. So 2 offs and actually on wet weather tyres. The 16 Porsche we know is on wets. I wasn't eagle-eyed enough to get it, eagle-eyed, Goodyear Eagles, eagle-eyed enough to know what the 72 Aston is on, but clearly Arnold Robin is finding grip wherever he chooses to put the car, so possibly the Frenchman is also on the full wets from Goodyear.
Yeah, we're not going to be breaking any lap records in this session, pretty clearly, but the key thing here is bring these cars home in good order. 2:04.618 from Duncan Cameron. That's beaten right as I speak by Arnold Robin into the 2:03, so 1.4 seconds to the good.
What I'm doing very quickly is just looking up last year's pole time for the equivalent race, which was Sarah Bovey effort, 1:41.8.
20 seconds.
20 seconds slower than last year's Portimão qualifying session, but that was fully dry. Aston Martin with a squirrely moment as well.
The GMB car, Jens Müller.
And that was at turn 3. So this car is right up there, second fastest, but that was on the previous lap, and that will have ruined any chance of going quicker.
Cameron goes quicker again with a 2:02 this time. So 2:02.9 now the mark to beat. 3 minutes 20 seconds to go in the session, and caution is clearly the order of the day here, and particularly because we're racing today.
Yeah, and also there's another race after that too. So I mean, I have had conversations with a number of people in that the thing you've got to avoid is any big drama on Friday, because it doesn't only affect the result of today's race, but also the final race of the season. And yes, with far fewer hours for fixing cars between the end of quali and the start of the race, which I'll remind you is at 2:45 this afternoon local time.
Qualifying, by the way, for race 2 is going to be on Saturday and then Sunday. We've got both the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the European Le Mans Series, so it's a packed weekend of action, let alone the Ligier European Series with 2 races here this weekend. Season finales for all 3 of the regular LMEM organised championships across Europe.
And it's the Ligiers that are actually the constant, as in they've got their races roughly where they would normally be in a standard weekend. Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, but everything else around it on the schedule has moved like crazy.
To the top, Arnaud Rabat in the TF Sport number 72 car. It's a 2:02.809, just under 2/10ths ahead of what was Duncan Cameron, but now 21 thousandths ahead of Johnny Lauerson, another car that was in trouble at the start of the session, but has come tearing back as off briefly goes Ryan Hardwick in the number 16 car.
On the full wets, as we know, so again, just struggling to slow the car down sufficiently, perhaps, rather than turning.
Yeah, it's Arnaud Rabat, a minute and a half to go. Johnny Lauerson, Duncan Cameron, Jens Muller, then Michael Fassbender, Christian Reed, top 6. And the top 5 of those are separated by just a smidge under a second. But there doesn't look to be, unsurprisingly, a lot of aggression in this session. It does look to me, Johnny, to be, let's get a time in and get this thing done.
Yeah. Yeah, because I haven't checked the latest forecast for 2:45 to 6:45 tonight.
I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there is still, nevertheless, the chance of maybe a little bit of rain, or well, we'll just have to wait and see. But if there is rain, and if there is more, perhaps crucially, incident, then there will be safety cars, there will be full course yellows, and how much does qualifying matter in terms of really going full risk? You might want to do it Saturday because you've got a championship to win, but and now Michael Fassbender's off the road again in the gravel trap, and that's an uphill gravel trap.
That could be a problem here. Let's see, where exactly is he here?
There's only 30 seconds left on the clock, so this will be...
will want to get to the line and complete this lap, which is a very quick one.
Yeah.
Be advised, we have a car on gravel at T11. We have a car on gravel.
He's going to complete this lap.
T11.
It's not going to be red flag before he completes it. Was the key thing. It's a 2:01.872, so he puts a second on the field.
Red flag. Session will not be resumed. Red flag. Session will not be resumed.
And the cars to miss out there, Martin Berry, who had been doing personal bests around that lap. The 44 car had done an absolute best in the middle sector.
He'd have gone second. He would have gone to the front row of the grid.
This is what happened to Fassbender. So it was through the left-hander at Craig Jones, and then the back end lets go, and he ends up actually on the gravel trap on the inside of turns 10 and 11, which is both known as the Portimão sequence of corners. That's why he was facing uphill, and absolutely no chance of getting out of wet gravel at that kind of angle.
No.
There are 3 cars to miss out there. The 66, which was going to have its best lap deleted anyway, so I mean, and has done now, so that drops Martin Berry down to 10th. The other car to be affected wasn't it a 60 car?
The 44 car certainly lost out there. Just looking for other cars that would have actually improved.
The 2 that got to the fast lane early and were going to have a best lap deleted.
Oh, I see,
66 and the 60 car. Well, the 60 cars dropped to the bottom now, and the slowest. And Martin Berry was further up than that, and he's now 10th.
He is indeed. He finished his session with a 2:09. His best would have been, by the way, had that red flag not come out, a 2:03.
Yeah.
So he would have been right up there, top 2 rows of the grid. So that red flag, the timing of it, robbed a couple of others of an opportunity to progress. You can see how far Michael Fassbender is off the track there. Looks slightly less dramatic from that angle, doesn't it? But
True.
way, way off into the gravel. And to say that the track conditions are tricky would be an understatement.
Yeah, and who's to know whether it was feeling for the drivers a little better with every lap, so you want to try and push that little bit harder as the water's clearing, but there is no way of knowing whether you're going to be over the limit or not. And thankfully, it didn't involve that 93 Porsche clattering anything significantly hard. So, yes, there'll be quite a bit of gravel to retrieve from inside the car, but it is still straight.
So TF Sports Aston Martin will be the pole-setting car in the hands of Arnold Robin from Johnny Larson in the Formula Racing number 50 car. And as your front row of Aston Martin and Ferrari, Duncan Cameron, third quickest. And we wait and see whether or not there is a penalty for Duncan for the red flag incident. But
True.
All lap times of car 93 deleted for causing a red flag in the qualifying session. So that's Michael Fassbender at the back of the grid. You would therefore presume the same must be true, or must it?
I don't know. I don't know if, because Duncan Cameron was able to drive out of the gravel and return to the pit lane under his own steam.
But he did so under a red flag.
He did, yeah, true. But he didn't require outside assistance. There is a grey area. I always used to think if you cause a red flag, that's it. But there's obviously, it's difficult to read if you've been taken out by somebody else. And generally, and the person that's taken you out doesn't then cause the red flag because they continue on, but they kind of have caused a red flag at the same time. Yeah. It's sometimes done on a case-by-case basis, but clearly the 93 car now gets all of its times deleted, which is a real shame. So it will drop behind Claudio Schiavone. Best time for Fassbender at 2:03.806.
So he would have been fifth place,
yes.
And now drops.
Actually, that was the last time. That was the last lap completed.
He was
0.997
off the pole position time. So he was within a second of the pole position time. Now drops behind Claudio Schiavone. So Arnold Robin, Johnny Larson, and the timing correct, but it was Duncan Cameron third, and then Jens Müller in the GMB. Here we go. There are the times that pops up in the fourth place. Proton competition then have the 77, 16, 5th and 6th. The 51 AF Corsa car 7th. Kessel Racing with the car guy livery car 8th. JMW, TF Sport, Iron Links and Proton competitions 93 for Michael Fassbender after that red flag incident. That is the order for the penultimate GTE race of this season and in European racing history.
It's a great time for 72, the TF Sport Aston Martin, to start to score meaningful points because they've yet to be in the top 5 in GTE. They haven't had a pole position either, so that is their first. But yes, yet to score more than 8 points in any of the races. In fact, they've only done that once, and that was last time out at Spa-Francorchamps. Now, everyone in the LMP3 field will be very grateful to Michael Fassbender if he can avoid bringing too much gravel onto the track, and that is exactly why he's trying to zigzag off the racetrack itself and on the runoff asphalt there before the 93 car will return to the track. Let's hope we can get this session underway roughly on time. It needs to start in 90 seconds to do that. And this is perhaps the reason why there's a fair amount of time being given between each of the 15-minute sessions, which means that actually qualifying these days for the ELMS spans something like 90 minutes from start to finish.
It's a great big show of entertainment.
It is.
It allows you and I to show both our character and indeed our talent. So sadly,
that's what I've always
that's what you've got for 90 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. But the cars look great, and also the times will be mightily impressive in LMP3. Always a session you cannot afford to take your eyes off because generally the positions change in the closing seconds. This is different from the previous session in that you can choose whichever driver you wish, although, of course, LMP3 teams are limited to bronze, silver, or indeed gold. We haven't got any golds in LMP3 for this particular meeting. So Fassbender, earlier on in the session, had a slightly wide moment between turns 1 and 2. Really not a lot of grip out there at all. And that enabled the 44 Aston Martin to slip by. But then this, really very little warning for Michael Fassbender that the car was going to snap because you are pretty much full throttle through Craig Jones, turn 9, relying on the aero that these GTE cars clearly have and hoping that there is enough friction and enough grip from those tyres, but clearly just a little bit too much water sent him flying off. But that's the reason why there's a gravel trap there, to arrest the speed as quickly as possible. He has got back in time for the LMP3 session to start smack on 10:15 as Fassbender arrives back into the pits, and now we can feast our eyes on 11 LMP3 cars and a variety of drivers and teams.
Indeed, and away they come. The characteristic rumble that we've got for this weekend and one more season in LMP3 before the Nissan V8 takes its bow and is replaced by the Turbo V6 at the end of next season in LMP3. But for now, that low rumble that we're so familiar with from these, and have been since 2015 in LMP3, it is 11 cars out on track, as we do have one no-show this weekend. Sadly, the number 10 Euro International car not present. So DKR Engineering, RLRM Sport with a couple of cars for them, Nielsen Racing. Team Virage, the solo Euro International car this weekend. W10 by Rinaldi Racing back after being disqualified for the race meeting, Johnny, at Spa last time out. Into Europol, Cool Racing, Racing Spirit Le Mans and Ultimate are the takers. And it is 9 Ligers, 2 Ducanes. The 2 Ducanes, the number 12 and W10 by Rinaldi. You can see that car just behind this number 17 Cool Racing car. And DKR Engineering.
So again, a chance for the LMP3 pilots to feel just how much grip is out there. It's not been raining through the GT session, although clearly the track's still very, very wet. And all of these drivers should have had some wet weather running in the much extended session yesterday. As I say, it was basically 2 free practice sessions bolted together to form free practice 1 this weekend, but 3 hours in total from just before 10 o'clock in the morning through till just before lunchtime. And well, it was affected by rain, but I don't think it was raining all the way through. The difficulty is, of course, that the race today is likely to be much, much better. So how much data can you glean from a completely different session? It's still nevertheless useful, and the thing is, as we found out in the last round, you have to make sure that all your drivers have done the required amount of laps, even to take part in the race.
I think that was way, way off there from Marcus Siebert.
It certainly was, yes.
It was difficult to tell with the dazzle on the camera. So who's aboard the cars? DKR Engineering have Pedro Perino aboard the number 4 Ducane. The RLRM Sport number 5 Ligier in the hands of Valdemar Eriksson. Ryan Harper-Ellam is aboard Nielsen Racing 7 Ligier. Manuel Espirito Santo in the Team Virage number 8. Adam Alley is out there in the dark blue number 11 Euro International Ligier. Oscar Coutinho is aboard the W10 by Rinaldi Racing Ducane, the number 12 car. The 13 from Inter-Europol competition, Wyatt Bricacek, and it is Gail Julien in the second RLR car there, 15. Marcus Siebert, we've just seen in the Cool Racing 17. Racing Spirit Le Mans, they field Antoine Ducin in this session in their 31 Ligier, and Ultimate in the 35 Ligier, Mathieu Lehay.
The gap for the 17 Cool Racing car, which is being piloted by Marcus Siebert, we're concentrating on that at the moment. They have a 46-point lead in the championship with only 52 left on the table. So you would have thought a half-decent result for Cool Racing would actually seal the championship today ahead of Inter-Europol competition, who are on 45, Racing Spirit of Le Mans 44, Euro International 43. It's one heck of a dice for second in the championship, but quite a leap for any of those three to jump ahead of Cool Racing. It could happen, and actually Portimão has good history of weird results that present a championship that almost looked impossible at the start of the season finale here. It's happened on at least 2 occasions, either in the ELMS or the Michelin Le Mans Cup. So Cool Racing will be fully focused on not doing anything crazy, just having a sort of, standard result. If they can win it, they'll definitely go for it, but they'll also be boxing clever to just try and get points in the bank and to seal the championship. Yeah,
10.5 minutes to go in the session. Adam Alley goes to the top for the Euro International, the number 11 car with a 1:57.9. That takes the top spot that was held briefly by Ryan Harper-Ellam. He's 6/10 back They're the two cars with the most representative times so far. We should, Johnny, start to see this track drying a little, but it's not drying quickly.
No. And again, the massive elevation change isn't helping in the lower corners, because that's where all the rain is going to accumulate. So you have to be very careful. At turning point at the hairpin at turn 5, just the other side of the big rotunda, which in better weather conditions attracts quite a crowd to its top floor because it gives a really good view all the way around this circuit. But also that dip out of the Portimão sequence of corners, so through 10 and 11 at one of the highest points on the track, then down through 12 is obviously going to be very tricky too until it fully dries out. Here's Manuel Espirito Santo at his home race for Team Virage of Poland, and is about to whip across the line to go fastest, and by nearly 2 seconds over Adam Ali.
That's some effort at this stage. 156.029, so 156 dead. Now the rain is tipping down again, by the way.
Yeah, it's not a replay. These are absolutely live pictures now, and all of a sudden the situation changes again. No inters in LMP3, so surely everyone's on wets anyway. You're just not going to be able to get any sort of lap time if you've decided to go with the slick tyres. These are Michelin tyres, though, in contrast to the tyre manufacturer in the GTEs.
Yeah, good here on the other 3 classes. It is Michelin for the LMP3s. And, some improvements coming. Coutinho goes through, cuts that nearly 2-second gap down to just 0.2 of a second. It's now tucked in behind the number 17 car. So Manuel Espirito Santo leads this session 156.0, 156.2 for Oscar Tunyo, and it's a 157.7 next up for Marcus Sieber, who's 1.7 seconds off pole.
Well, I'm expecting Tunyo to have the bit between his teeth this weekend, because remember, it was the 12 car, as we cut again to how much rainfall in one of the huge puddles around the Algarve International Circuit we're seeing at the moment. Remember back to Spa, Tunyo took pole position on the Saturday, and then in the evening, this number 12 car, the W2M machine, was effectively removed from the meeting after it was discovered by the officials that not all of their drivers had competed in either of the free practice sessions. So Tunyo did nothing wrong. He went very, very fast in Belgium, but he'll be looking to try and repeat that feat and start from the front of LMP3 later today. Yeah,
real blow to their competitiveness and their hopes, wasn't it, for WTM? But it's their credit that come bouncing back from that. And they're here with us for this double-header. Nico Lapierre in the Cool Racing garage, keeping an eye on things. It's, of course, multi-role in the European Le Mans Series, like a fighter bomber.
Here's Antoine Ducat with conditions changing completely from a couple of laps ago. The extra downforce on these cars will surely be helping, but you've got to have faith in the science, because as the grip dissipates beneath you, you still have to keep the pedal down pretty firmly to make sure that the car and that invisible hand of downforce is still pushing the car down and keeping it on the track. And those with more experience of downforce cars, either in prototypes or in single-seaters a couple of years ago in some cases, will be more adaptable in this situation. Mathieu Lehay, danger of him running out of the racing line and has to get out of the throttle as there's a massive twitch from the 35 Ultimate car.
Yeah, 6 minutes to go. Manuel Espirito Santo is on pit road, and I think waiting to see if anybody starts to improve here. But the key change here, Johnny, is the top half of this running order on timing and scoring. No blue sectors now in these prevailing conditions. Yeah. Still a couple of the cars that have not set competitive laps, making some improvements, but as far as the battle for pole is concerned, the weather appears to have taken that away with a vengeance.
Yeah, the Alcomel timing screen does this neat thing now of when a car pits, it shows you its best times so far, but it's really confusing me because we have 3 absolute best times at the top. Well, that's because that car holds all 3 times, but it's not currently circulating, and that's really not a bad shout. It doesn't feel like a big cushion of a quarter of a second. However, no one's going to be able to get close to the 156.0 because of more and more rain falling.
Well, as an example of that, as we keep watching Marcus Siebert, in the first sector, Oscar Tunyo, who over his fastest lap was 2/10 off, is almost 5/10 off in the first sector.
Yeah.
So unpleasant, and I think the 2 groups of people at the moment it's particularly unpleasant for. Well, anybody trackside, including our marshals, our cameramen for that matter, and any brave spectators who've managed to come out here that are not undercover, and for the drivers, these are not nice conditions.
I was watching with interest that conversation that Jose Pachito Lopez was having with Richard de Guiras. They drive the 47 Cool Racing LMP2 car, but that was suggesting to me that Richard is being put into qualifying again, and there was a little bit of coaching there from the Argentine to his right. We'll wait and see. Richard does already have a pole position to his name as we concentrate on Gaël Julien of RLRM Sport. There are some blue times coming through in the middle sector now.
Oscar Tunyo.
Yeah.
But he was 3 seconds off over the full lap. So it's the first and third sectors that are causing problems here.
Yes. And actually the slower the middle sector that runs from just about where you hit the brakes into the hairpin at turn 5 up to the top of the hill at Portimão, that's more technical, and probably you're relying more on mechanical grip rather than the downforce. But yeah, the first sector, which is very fast, particularly that approach to turn 1. The final sector coming through 14 and 15. Again, you need downforce, downforce, downforce through there, and you're just not going to get it with this amount of water on the track. Espirito Santo is going to rejoin, though, with 3.5 minutes to go. So he's back in the session. Ryan Harper-Ellam goes faster than the Portuguese through the middle sector for Nielsen Racing. But it's a question of whether the number 7 car that is currently 6th can try and find more time than Espirito Santo has managed in the third sector. Very sideways indeed from Espirito Santo, who, as I mentioned, is back in the session, but almost approaching sideways into turn 5 there at the hairpin.
Well, the key here for Ryan Harper-Ellam is what can he produce in the very tricky third sector, particularly tricky in these conditions. That big sweeping turn at the end of the lap has caught so many people out. Big squirrely wide moment there from the current pole position sitter, and the answer, by the way, is he loses 3 seconds in that final sector.
Yeah,
I'm not sure it's doable in any way, shape or form here.
That's how damaging that final sector is with the current amount of moisture on the road. So 1.4 seconds slower than Ryan's best effort to date, and that was a 1:58, which in turn is 2 seconds slower than Manuel Espirito Santo. Certainly capable of going quicker is Ryan. And very nearly throws the car sideways, or does briefly, but controlled it well coming out of turn 4. But yeah, I mean, that's the story of everybody else, really. If you haven't set the time early enough in the session, it's probably too late now.
Yeah, another short, sharp shower. So dropping 3 seconds in a sector that takes just over 40.
Yeah.
That's marking off the road for
Espirito Santo, and he doesn't need to do this.
No, well, what he wants to be really careful here is not cause a red flag.
Yes.
Because he's got the most to lose here.
That's true.
A minute and a half to go in this session.
I was thinking about damage, and the poor old Team Virage, you might have to fix an otherwise really good-looking car, and it's clearly very fast as well this weekend. So don't need to be greedy here, as now locking up is the Euro International car of Adam Ali, who briefly set the early pace.
One of the other key things about the European Le Mans Series and LMP3 is the bottom 3 cars, by regulation, do not automatically come back next year.
Yeah.
They are effectively up for relegation.
Oscar Tunyo is going to be a driver to watch, because potentially he has been going quicker through the first 2 sectors than Espirito Santo. but it remains to be seen whether there's enough grip and downforce coming through turn 15, which he's doing now. He was nearly a tenth up at the end of sector 2. Can he continue that on? No. It's all about that final sector.
1.5 seconds.
Lost the same again, yeah. And that's the despair down at WTM. They thought there was a chance there.
How frustrating must that be? It's just, you know, you tough it out through a really tricky first sector. Second sector, it's a little more technical, but then it's all about grip for that final turn.
Yeah.
We've seen what happens when it goes wrong there as well, Johnny, time and time again.
Well. But I don't think that for one moment was in Oscar Tuño's mind about what might happen if the car swaps ends on him. But when you're powerboating through turn 15 rather than being glued to the track surface, that's the difference. And that's how quickly more than a second can just slip through your fingers. A grin from Rodrigo Sales, probably pleased that he's not out in it yet.
Yep. So just behind the graphic there was Matthias Besch. Behind, Graham Johnson. You might remember him from the days of Lannon Racing and race wins in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Now he's part of the Nielsen Racing effort.
We will see Sales in the LMP2 Pro-Am scrap for qualifying honours. The checkered flag, though, is out. However, the 12 car hasn't yet seen the checkered flag because Oscar Tuño was able to get across the line with 25 seconds remaining.
Got blue sector times coming in, but again, you know, it's that third sector. That's where we need this track to dry, and it just doesn't show any immediate signs of doing that. It's going to make the 2 LMP2 sessions particularly tricky, particularly the one with the bronze drivers aboard in LMP2 Pro-Am.
Yeah, it's risk versus reward there, and how keen are you to start from the front row when it goes wrong at 15, as we've been suggesting, it can go wrong in a very big way. And we've had situations sometimes where even the pit lane becomes blocked because a car has crashed either partly going into it or caught the end of the pit wall as well. Think about the Michelin Le Mans Cup race only last year in that scenario.
Got another couple of great sectors from Oscar Tuño, but he drops just over a second in the final sector. Better than the previous effort, but still a second off his best. All about that last sector. Quick moment to say well done to Gael Julien in the number 15 car. He did improve his time last time around, but he was some little way back down the order. So does Valdemar Eriksson. Both the RLR cars improve in the latter stages, but they will stay 9th and 10th in the 11 car field.
There's the number 4 DKR engineering car of Pedro Perino, finishing 5th in the standings then, ahead of Ryan Harper-Ellam, who was looking to try and improve and did do, for a time, the absolute best. To wait to see him get back into the pit lane to see whether he held on to that. But it's not in the hands of Manuel Espirito Santo, the middle sector best time. So I think that is still with Ryan Harper-Ellam.
Yes.
But he couldn't extrapolate that then into the final sector. And that is the story of so many other cars and teams up and down the order. Returning from a slight off-track moment there, Valdemar Eriksson as well. One
final improvement, by the way, that split the 2 RLR cars, and that was an improvement from Mathieu Lehay. Clearly struggling in that session, but he improves from 11th to 10th.
So here is the order. I'm also reading a message about one of the GTE cars under investigation, potentially at scrutineering. We'll get to that in a moment. 156.029. More than good enough for Manuel Espirito Santo. In fact, he parked the car briefly and then got going again, but couldn't improve. From Oscar Tuño, who was giving it everything. The car that's qualified on pole at Spa, but then was removed from the meeting, should start from the front row in LMP3. Ahead of Cool Racing's Marcus Siebert, championship leaders. Adam Alley for Euro International. Pedro Perino for DKR Engineering alongside Ryan Harper-Ellam for Nielsen. And then it's the Inter-Europol competition car number 13 of Wyatt Bricacek, alongside Racing Spirit of Le Mans' Antoine Ducin, RLR M Sport Ultimate, and the second RLR car complete the top 11 in LMP3. And if you had a car in LMP3 and you also run cars in LMP2, that might be quite useful for transferal of data and advice as well.
Where the grip is, and more particularly, where the grip isn't.
Precisely right. So we're going to be doing LMP2 and twice over very, very shortly. Session for LMP2 Pro-Am, where the driver lineups must include a bronze, due to start in just over 6 minutes' time.
Indeed, it's a bumper crop of LMP2s this year. It's going to be bigger still in 2024.
Does LMP2 Pro-Am return
yes.
next year as well? Okay, so there is still the option of plugging a bronze in and fighting for a different title.
Tell you, I'm very much expecting the total in LMP2 Cross, the two classes in 2024, to be north of 20. And by the way, the number that are looking to be part of that number to be closer to 30.
Okay.
There is a big demand.
So there's going to be some disappointed teams.
So there can be a number of disappointed teams.
And that's how competitive, not only on the track, but also to be involved in the championship, the ELMS has become. The
business of endurance racing is booming right now. But the problem is, of course, the effects of not making that cut are pretty dramatic.
Yeah, it can have a knock-on effect then as to other projects or what you're planning to do over the next 3 to 5 years, let's say. So, in really interesting times, and not just in the FIA World Endurance Championship, but also, of course, in the European Le Mans Series. LMP2 no more in WEC, but it is very much the focus in ELMS, as in still the fastest category in 2024. And if you do well in a championship like this, or Asian Le Mans, or in America, then that can put you on the grid at Le Mans.
Absolutely.
Where LMP2 is still very much a going concern.
Yeah, I was delighted to be told by a colleague in the press room that correcting the, I have to say, fantastic monthly magazine, Motorsport magazine, did make a bit of a mistake, and I did write a reader's letter in. It's been published just to correct that very point.
There we are.
I feel quite proud of myself.
A reader's letter?
I know.
Did you have your name at the bottom of it as well?
Apparently.
Wonderful. I mean, it's nice that, you know, everybody makes mistakes.
No, I rang them and told them, and they asked me to send a letter of publication. Yeah.
So make it more public, the fact that they, and then they corrected it.
Which is to their credit.
Too right.
They all make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's my wife.
Okay. Weather tyres, the order of the day again for these LMP2 Pro-Ams. I wonder if anybody's going to be brave enough in the LMP2s without the Pro-Am bit to go slick. But
not a chance.
It's not going to dry up enough, is it? Yep. Even when you're talking about full factory pros, they wouldn't take the risk. Is that a Husky, Graham?
That's Shadow the Husky. Sadly, Shadow is an ex-Husky. We don't say that loud when Rodrigo's listening, because Shadow, a very elderly rescue husky.
Okay.
And afraid passed away. I think it was early this year. And
that's the reason for the motif?
It was already on there.
Right.
Each of the Nielsen drivers have the motif of their doggy on the car, and that's Rodrigo Sales's beloved husky. That's a husky dad myself. I just know just how lovable those darn things are.
Makes a great little badge of honour as well on the side of the car, but you couldn't possibly remove it now. So in the memory of Rodrigo's husky, great to see. And here, at this height, the weather in the Algarve looks fabulous. Manuel Espirito Santo knows a lot about the weather around here as well, and he can chat now with Steph Wentworth.
I am joined with Manuel Espirito Santo, driver of the number 18 Virage. Congratulations, that's back-to-back pole positions for you in LMP3.
Yeah, it's great, especially to get back-to-back poles is something incredible, and especially here in Portimão, in my home country, it was really tricky. The weather conditions were changing a lot, so I knew it had to be early, and that first lap was everything or nothing, and thankfully it paid off.
And how are the changing conditions? Obviously, we don't really know what's going to happen for the race a little bit later on.
Yeah, for the race it's going to be tricky. Even in quali, from one lap to the other was completely different. So it was just adapting to the track and to the changing conditions, and I'm super happy. Now we need to focus on the race. It's going to be tricky, but it's going to be a fun one, I think.
Right, we'll see you later on. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's been competing very well in the ELMS this year, still only 20 years old. He also did both of the Road to Le Mans races with Virage back in June. So plenty of endurance racing. His first step into it is this season, in fact.
Yeah. Disappointed to see Steph not using her fluent Portuguese in that interview.
That's true.
It's one of them, a myriad of languages that Steph speaks, and I'm sure that there's be the opportunity, I'm sure, to have a chat with Manuel off mic. It's good to see some fans in the grandstand. Huge grandstand here opposite the pits. Sunshine more bright now. Not sure we're going to see much of a dry line though, Johnny.
The fans in the grandstand texting their mates going, this is great qualifying, but who are the two blokes talking about it?
Nonsense.
They don't really know much at all.
So we've got 10 LMP2 cars, all Oreca 07s with the fabulous 4.2 litre Gibson engine in the rear of those cars. The soundtrack of the European Le Mans Series since 2017, alongside the rumbling V8s and the LMP3s and the variety of power plants we've seen in GTE. And another year or so to run for this formula before we move to different chassis and a different engine. That decision imminent.
Okay. Before the end of the year? Perhaps not.
I'm going to. I know a bit
I've
more.
said the wrong thing.
I know a bit more than I want to say.
Okay, fine. We'll leave it there. But I think really watch this space.
Oh, you know what?
Exit will open in 10.
Go on.
9,
You're starting to agree with me now, aren't you? I don't think it's. I think it's too early to go slicks
4,
now.
Yes.
But if it doesn't rain
2,
between now and the start of
1,
LMP2 qualifying, there's surely going to be one or two that roll the dice. Henrik Hedman's not in the queue, incidentally. That's not a problem. I think it's more a question of let all the traffic clear, and then you'll have an open road when you do get into this session. That's another reason why it's 15 minutes rather than 10 minutes that we have had in the World Endurance Championship in the past. It just gives you a bit more wriggle room as to when you join the session and also when you really push for the hot laps. So everybody else was in that queue and is now into the session. Alex Lynn watching on as well, of course. But the standing water is going to be a problem between turns 3 and 4, and then the track slightly rises. Just a nice gentle slide there from Sally Jolic in the number 34 car, getting a feel for how much grip's likely to be on the track when he comes around much greater speed in a lap's time.
Yep, so TF Sport looking after this car, and that's one of the teams who are looking to double up in 2024 in LMP2. In fact, their second car did test earlier this week. We'll see those cars in the Asia Le Mans Series in December in Sepang for the first doubleheader weekend of a 5-race series in Asia this year. So Sally is at the wheel. Now, as you can see where they're trying to get the power down, and there is grip, there is none or very little. Car just twitching to the right-hand side, corrected by the driver very quickly. It goes to the outside here. Is there grip there to get around the other car? Yes, there is. Takes the apex and comes tumbling down the hill. Pointy end first, always a good thing.
The other interesting thing for me about Alex Lynn being on the radio is that his car, which is the 25 car, is actually an LMP2 machine. He must be on the radio to Fred Pordad in the sister Algarve Pro Racing car, number 20, offering a bit of advice, a bit of coaching, real time, which again is the benefit, I suppose, of having a car in LMP2
yes,
with the world-class drivers, and then also in LMP2 Pro-Am, because you can mix them up a little bit. You can have conversations that could be so key to a bronze driver getting used to the car.
It is basically, it's a team game, you know, and it's not just about being searingly fast on track. It's about what you can do with the skill set you've got to encourage those tenths out of the less professional, less able, less experienced drivers.
Yeah, so it's a big old job to be, you know, one of the really quick people in this championship. You don't just sort of arrive and drive and the team expect you to put in a pole lap. There are many responsibilities when you're not due to be in the car, and that's a shining example of it. Through the water splash goes Sally Jolic, and now he can really put the pedal down coming out of turn 4, but because of that dip in the throttle that everyone surely is doing at the moment, you're not going to be at terminal velocity, maximum speed, by the time you hit the brakes into turn 5, which is where exactly now the Istanbul man reaches and just about stops the car in time.
Indeed, you can see just there where the grip wasn't. Beginning to get a dry line up the hill. It could be quite an exciting session, you know. If this does change dramatically through the next 11.5 minutes, and we've seen time and time again that a track can present meaningful additional grip as you get more cars out there, as the water is just funneled off the racing line, or whatever line they can find, frankly. But we're moving certainly from a position in the last 2 sessions where, frankly, it was surviving the session to the point where I do think you're going to find the more experienced bronze drivers here starting to push for real pace.
The tyres that we often have to really take care of during qualifying, that kind of goes out the window as soon as the session is declared wet, because wet weather tyres are effectively unlimited. And it might be that you use these as your qualifying tyre, then throw them in the bin afterwards because you don't need them for today's race later on. And in that case, it will be 3 sets for LMP2 Pro-Am and LMP2s. But crucially, if we do have a shower in the race later on today, I'll say again, no intermediates. So a big decision has to be made as to whether you tough it out on the slicks and hope that the sunshine comes out more quickly, or if you do, you know, bite the bullet and make the change to wets. But there's no decision to be made right now in this session. The question remains what happens in the final qualifying of today.
10 minutes to go. Sally Jolic went to the top of timing and scoring. And as we've seen in the last couple of races, Johnny, Giorgio Roda making a fight of this. He goes to the top. It's a 2:06.694 for the 99 Proton competition driver. That is just closer to 8/10ths clear of the Turkish driver, the 34 car.
So Henrik Hedman joining rather delayed compared to everybody else, but that was always part of the plan at Dragon Speed USA, Elton Julian's team. And through turn 15, which does appear to be getting a little drier, but then you look at the amount of spray being chucked out the back of the 81 car.
This is a good lap from him.
Yeah, well, an absolute
Goes to the
best.
top.
There we go. So 1.6 seconds is the difference between he and Giorgio Roda after an absolute best in the middle sector, although that's been improved upon since then. And also, well, personal bests all around, which when you plug them together, an impressive lap for Henrik Hedman. And that's the benefit, perhaps, of not being caught up with cars around you.
I think that's exactly it. Because able to see where he's going is a plus.
Yeah.
But that, nonetheless, was a good lap indeed from the US domiciled Swede.
Here's Sally Jolic, again deliberately staying well over to the left-hand side of the circuit, where normally you would be bolted to the red and white curbing on the inner edge of that curve, the racing line.
Dragon Speed, one of a rare breed of teams that have won in LMP2, in the FIA World Endurance Championship, in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, and here in the European Le Mans Series. And Henrik Hedman, as across the line comes Sally Jolic to go top, but again is edged by Giorgio Roda. It's just about a second or two behind him on track. To complete the point though, Henrik Hedman, one of the very few drivers who has been part of a winning crew overall in an LMP2 race as a bronze driver.
Okay.
Did so twice, I think, in the LMS in recent years.
Yes.
That's before we had LMP2 Pro-Am.
Indeed. Well, he's shown that he can mix it, perhaps, you know, fight above his weight, if you like, a number of times. We've seen him in LMP1 cars as well.
Yep.
With the BR01 a few years ago now. Now, is Henrik going a tad slowly? I don't think so, because there's still grins there from both the Montoyas.
Yep, father and son. Not difficult to pick out which is which.
And here comes their man, Henrik Hedman. Is he likely to improve again? Just looking at the times, Hedman has done personal bests and does improve. Yeah, it's a 2:03.6, but it will still put him in 5th position. So a third row start, as backwards there at turn 3, not the ideal line from Fred Pordad in the number 20 Algarve Pro racing car, a car and driver I was mentioning earlier on in relation to Alex Lynn.
Yeah, he's gathered it back up though, so there will be no interruption to the flow here. But parts of this track, if not dry, are drying. More grip will be there.
Also, at certain angles, the sun glare is going to start to be a problem as well. Let's hope that all the visors have been adjusted accordingly, and of course they run with visors on the windshield as well to limit the amount of sunlight creeping in.
There is quite some lap underway at the moment from Giorgio Roda. He's at the moment at 2:02.34. No, big twitch there for Sally Jolic. Just about gathers it back up. He'll lose that lap, but that could have been so much worse, Johnny.
That was turn 15, the one we keep going on about, as Giorgio Roda in the background and in all of the spray does go quicker again, and by a big chunk. It's a second in the end from Tom van Rompuy, who was also pedalling very rapidly too. And of course, they could have all been involved in an incident if Sally Jolic had left the road and clattered into the barrier either left or right.
Roda found nearly 3 seconds on that lap. First man under 2 minutes, 1:59.0 compared to a 2 minutes .1 from Tom van Rompuy, Francois Peroda. That was the moment for Sally Jolic. He did so well to gather that back up.
The car in slow motion is starting to get away from him, and then it's the violent twitch in the other direction. There were 2 of them, in fact. And it's not just a question of getting out of the throttle. You've got to coax that car out of the moment and just work with it. Otherwise, it is disaster at the start of such a crucial weekend.
And it's that same place again on the circuit, Johnny, where that mechanical grip is so important. It's what took away the bite at the end of the sessions in GTE and LMP3. And that's where these guys are pushing the envelope right now. And Sally found exactly where the grip wasn't.
There is one heck of a fight going on in the championship in LMP2 Pro-Am. It's only 4 points that separate Jolic with his teammates Charlie Eastwood and Louis Delatraz from Mathieu Vaxivière and Francois Perodo in their AF Corset car, number 83. So, again, the importance of getting the cherry red TF Sport Run Racing Team Turkey car at least to the end of this session and very much to the end of today's race with a good result in hand would be an even bigger bonus. Tom van Rompuy with mechanical problems, it looks like, coming out of turn 13. The car crawling briefly, or is he just trying to buy himself some space to the car in front so he can go for a quick one again?
We'll keep an eye on that as to whether or not he heads pit lane. It looked to me as that was the latter. Yeah. That perhaps he was just edging off it. It's where we see it, and he is going again.
That's fine. So we do see that even in a session with 10 cars. I've certainly seen it in a session, let's say, with 30-odd cars, with drivers backing off deliberately. Giorgio Roda developing quite a nice habit here, Graham.
He is indeed. He's just gone through with a 1:57.371. He is hooked up. And to give you an idea of just how good a lap that is, the dominant force in qualifying in LMP2 Pro-Am this year has been Sally Jolic. Sally is 5.5 seconds slower than that. That is some performance in qualifying from Giorgio Roda.
Clearly at home in these trying conditions, and Giorgio's raced GT cars before with far less grip in rainy racetracks, so maybe just more comfortable perhaps with the car moving beneath him, and he can predict what it's going to be doing a little bit more. But Sally Jolic, he's trying to push as now Henrik Hedman is off the road and causing a yellow flag at turn 13. So that's at the top of the hill. We're looking back from turn 14 really, at 13 there, and that's exactly where Duncan Cameron left the road during his GT session. Again, don't think he hit the tyres, so we'll be able to carry on.
Yeah, 3 minutes to go. It's another purple sector from Giorgio Roda, but drops a little bit of time in sector 2, maybe influenced by that yellow flag. Great news for them, great news for Proton Competition. Another team looking to expand their LMP2 efforts alongside their efforts in GT with the Ford Mustang next year, and in hypercar with the Porsche. Scored the first podium in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for privately entered GTP/hypercar at Petit Le Mans last weekend, and that's great news for them. Should mention, by the way, there is a change in that driver lineup this weekend, because after that race, Jimmy Bruni has been a very busy boy, reported a bit of a tweak to a shoulder. So it is no Jimmy Bruni this weekend. Ben Fiscal will climb aboard.
There's Sally Jolic, second fastest now, 1:57.999. Call the police.
5 seconds quicker than he's gone before. Is he going to be able to go again here, make a fight of this? He's going to have 2 laps to do it.
Well, that's much more like it, and might be evidence that the conditions are improving, but it's also Sally getting more confident with what the car's going to do as well. And I have to say, after such a moment at turn 15, he's kind of emptied that memory out of his mind very quickly as Giorgio Roda in the background, who's competing for pole position, goes off the road.
Goes off the road after setting a purple sector. That lap will not count. Could that be a crucial moment here, Johnny? Because it was a purple sector first for Sally Jolic in that lap, bettered then by Giorgio Roda, who then goes off the road for a lap that will be dealt the track limits judgment, I'm certain of that. But Jolic is on a flyer. Could he nick this right at the end? We've got 1 minute and 15 seconds to go.
looked highly unlikely when there was 5 seconds separating the Italian from the Turkish driver, but actually Roda's rejoined and is still at relatively close quarters, but he's lost far too much time in that middle sector because of the off. 0.6 of a second compared to Sally Jolic. Very pensive, emotional, potentially down at TF Sport. They're desperate to try and get an extra point to their challenge if they can do so in the closing stages. He'll get another lap after this if he can't do it right now, but this is the prime point with 2 blue sectors to date. Now the 37 car is off the road, but that won't affect Sally Jolic. 37 is Alexandre Coigny for Cool Racing. But here comes the there we go, gets it, and by 23 thousandths of a second. So 23 thousandths of a second separate he and Giorgio Roda, but will Roda get another lap out of it as well?
He does, but and by the way, that not call for track limits for Giorgio Roda at this point.
Self-policing though, isn't it? I mean, he was way off the road, he lost a significant amount of time. The issue now though is that there's a yellow flag at turn 5 because Alexandre Coigny's off the road, so if you set your fastest time with yellows, that's almost certainly going to be deleted, which may well ruin the chances of Giorgio Roda offering some sort of response.
So where is Roda? He's there now. Where was the yellow flags are still there. They're not going to be allowed to improve on this lap. It's going to be, by the look of things, well, is it though? Alexander Matschel comes up with a purple sector 1. Well, but he's just come through the yellow flag sector.
The other thing that's done for Giorgio Roda on this lap is he has been done for track limits through sector 1. Not sure where he ran off the road, but Roda's current lap will not count, and therefore he's not going to need to find the 24 thousandths of a second. Not this time, and it'll be checkered flag next time around. Matschel, 3rd, but going faster, as you point out. Purple, and this is down to a quick car, a quick driver, but also the track drying up significantly. Yeah,
I do wonder though, was he in the yellow sector during this lap? I think he possibly was. He's gone purple sector 2 as well. He's almost a second up. Is that lap going to be allowed to stand?
Annoyingly, the yellow flags have now been withdrawn behind Matschel though, so if he'd gone through around about now, everything would have been fine. However, working his way through turns 14 and about to go through 15 as well. Giorgio Roda slowing, but thankfully not causing a problem for Matschel, who really just needs to post as good a time as any, and if it's taken away from him, well, so be it. But you've got to do it first of all. Can he snatch potential pole position away from Sally Jolic? Yes, he can, by a full second. It's a 1:55.426. Now, the only slight blot on the copybook here could be that there were yellow flags through turn 5 for Matschel as he went through that segment. We will wait with bated breath to see whether that lap will be permitted as Tom van Rompuy completes the session. No, Rodrigo Sales will leapfrog him and into 4th position for Nielsen Racing.
So that pace was coming back into that track, and that bodes well, by the way, Johnny, for the LMP2 session still to come. Remember, another opportunity, LMP2 cars on track shortly, but this is LMP2 Pro Am. So we wait and see whether or not race control call anything to do with the lap for Alexander Matschel.
And, well, they will need to check in what state the track was, whether a car was being recovered, and yellow flags, if they're double waved yellows, it's a question of slowing down and being prepared to stop, and you're certainly not doing that on a qualifying lap.
The key, it is going to be seconds either side. It's not what we're seeing on timing screen, it's what they were displaying on track, and we didn't see that.
True.
If he came into that turn and green flags were there, then he's good to go.
Yeah. And they will not necessarily know that until they get a report from the marshals down at turn 5 and maybe a look at extra cameras, indeed maybe an onboard camera from car number 19. But at the moment, we have to say it's a pole position for Team Virage, a 1:55.426 and a clear second faster than Sally Jolic, who must have surely thought he had sealed another pole for 2023 and an extra point to the Championship Challenge. A very slim margin of just 23 thousandths of a second then back to Giorgio Roda, who will start on the second row in LMP2 Pro Am alongside Nielsen Racing and Rodrigo Sales, along with the rest of his team mates. Tom van Rompuy for DKR Engineering and AF Corsa Francois Perrodo right up there in the championship will start 5th and 6th respectively, ahead of Algarve Pro Racing's number 20 car Dragon Speed, The 37 Cool Racing car of Alexandre Coigny and Daniel Schneider completes the lineup in Pro-Am. And here is the provisional, shall we say, the pole sitter in LMP2 Pro-Am. A great effort. I'm
minded, unless we hear different, to say that he arrived at that turn after Alexandre Coigny had got ahead. It did, however, take away from the opportunity of Sally Jolic to improve, because he certainly was in the middle of that yellow flag zone as that incident was unfolding. So at the moment, I think we'll say we've got a new pole sitter, and it's Alexander Matchell, and well done, sir.
Indeed so, and yes, a first change of pole sitter for the season, because there have been 4 races and 4 poles for Sally Jolic, so it rather breaks the Turkish drivers' stranglehold on that accolade. They started the season, the 34 car, with a couple of wins. It was Aragon, sadly a race to forget for them, but back on track at Spa with a second place finish. The 19 car has only had 1 top 5 so far, and definitely a first pole of the year, so this could be a good result for the Friday race here at Portimão.
Could be an important result for the ambitions of the team next year as well. We're at that stage right now, so we will see.
Cars now being shuffled around on pit road in a much sunnier scene here at the Algarve International Circuit.
To give you an idea of the change in pace here this year, P3 pole, this comes from my friend and colleague Stephen Kilby. Happy birthday this weekend, by the way, Stephen. P3 pole was a 1:56.029. Only the pole setting car was quicker than that in LMP2 Pro-Am.
Wow. Okay.
That's the difference between pro drivers in the P3 cars and non-pros in the P2 Pro-Am cars.
Yeah, true enough. So there's going to be interesting little bit of overlap maybe to look forward to in the race as well, depending on conditions, because LMP2's very aerodynamic dependent. LMP3s can get away with a bit more mechanical grip. So although you think the forecast for the race today at 2:45 is a lot better than this morning.
Well, the other thing I was just about to say there, we can still see that, that it's very, very damp, but sunshine and pretty high winds. That's a good combination to dry as a circuit. If you can actually get the water in this track to start to vaporise, it'll dry much more quickly with wind behind it.
Yeah. And we have seen that many times before, actually, a very slow lap, and then it just stops raining, bit of sunshine, and then you get a really quick lap out of nowhere. And that session was that perfect example in that Alexander Matchell, who is quick anyway, but helped certainly by track conditions getting better and better with every lap.
Now, are we going to get to a point during the 15-minute session here where someone risks slicks?
That was a question that I was posing at the start of the Pro-Am session. And it might be wise just to get a banker in on the wets initially, and then the real pro drivers, top level, and we've got many of them now in this category in the European Le Mans Series, they might just decide to take the gamble, because if it does go a little wrong, they have the skill, they have the reaction times to be able to, generally speaking, keep the car out of the scenery. We'll find out in a moment or two whether the 47 car is going to be qualified by Richard de Gueras as well. But was he being spoken to by Jose Maria Lopez during the GT session, I think it was. It was early on in the piece anyway. And that looked like a bit of a pep talk and some advice about how to tackle this racetrack in trying conditions. We're also peering in now to find out whether it is Laurence Hoare in the number 28 car. Could well be Paul-Luc Chatin, unlikely to be Paul Lafargue.
Gilles Duquesne there, watching on and waiting to see what fortune comes the way of his number 31 Duquesne team car, the black and green car. 22 from United Autosports USA, Rino Sato, Phil Hansen.
An excellent win for these guys at Motorland Aragon at the end of August, but they have struggled for the rest of the season. They were top 5 last time out at Spa, a track where they normally do so well at, actually, but it all went very wrong at the first corner for Marino Sato, you may remember, as he was biffed into the gravel and then also got clonked, actually that restarted the car, strangely enough, by an errant LMP3 car as well. But all hell rather broke loose at the start of the 4 hours of Spa-Francorchamps last month, you may remember. But it's been the start of the season for Car 22 where they have struggled. They they've always got finishes, but sadly outside of the top 5. Here's the 25 car that leads the championship then, and it's a 17-point advantage for Algarve Pro Racing. Their drivers, Kiffin Simpson, James Allen and Alex Lynn. And Alex Lynn in a coaching role last time in the previous session for Fred Pordad. May well have been put in the car, or will it be James Allen to do the qualifying time? We'll wait and see.
Yep, it's a variety of talents here. Established talents, emerging talents. LMP2 has been doling out the entertainment all season in the European Le Mans Series. And we get 2 bites at that this weekend.
And the pole positions have been reasonably well spread out, actually. It started off with the 47 crew taking back-to-back poles. Richard de Guerras to start with, Jose Maria Lopez in Le Castellet. Then we had the pole for Phil Hansen in the number 22 car at Aragon, which then led to the win. And last time out, a pole for the 25 car, which leads the championship. So this session will be starting in the next 5 seconds or so, but before that, let's hear from our pole sitter in Pro-Am.
And with Alexander Matchell, pole position for the number 19 Team Barrage. Congratulations, huge achievement for you guys.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy. I must say the team Barrage did a real job, prepare me a car which gives me confidence. I was the first time in a P2 in rain yesterday, so I'm getting faster and faster, and I'm really happy now.
Right, well, we'll see what you can do in the race later on. Good luck for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy chappy, and quite right too. That lap cracker in challenging conditions, even though it was drying. You know, as we saw from Sally Jolic just a minute or two earlier, just how tricky it still is.
And plenty of gusty wind as well, so that might affect you when you're off guard. It's helping to dry the track, but nevertheless, because of, again, the up and down dale nature of this, you could be protected by the scenery, and then all of a sudden in a crosswind, which you need to control.
So out on track, Johnny, 22 United Autosports car in the hands of Phil Hansen. James Allen it is, the 25 car from Algarve Pro Racing. It is indeed Lawrence Herr has given qualifying duties in the 28 EDEC Sport car, and Neil Johnny in the Duquesne team number 30. 43's into Europol competition car is Ollie Caldwell. Richard de Guerras in the Cool Racing 47. In the meantime, Panis Racing 65 car, Job van Utrecht. They are the septet that are going for it right now.
And a reminder of where we sit in the championship points as well. So 76 the 25 crew have, coming here with 52 still left on the table. From a closer fight for second and third, 59 for Duquesne, and then just 3 points further back Panis, a point behind them EDEC, and 4 points deficit for Cool Racing. So the good thing, I suppose, about the Algarve Pro Racing position is that they don't quite have that race victory of points in hand, but it's not far away. So Alex Lynn, James Allen, Kiffin Simpson with 2 wins so far to their name. They also finished on the podium at Aragon. It possibly started not as it was about to continue at Barcelona, because it was a top 5, in fact 5th position in Spain, but ever since then they have been on the podium and consistently scoring points, and that's what you need to do to win a European Le Mans Series. Here's Laurence Herr, just slightly sideways and needing to mop that moment up, and again, and that might be partly the plan from the German, to try and increase tyre temp as much as possible and really light up these wet weather tyres.
See how much water is still being funneled out the back of that car. Little stream across the track there as well. It's the shade of grey that is changing rapidly. It is going to be about, and there are slicks being readied down there at APR.
As I say, I think the best plan is you get a banker lap in, and a good one on the wets. Make sure that it's a legitimate lap and you haven't left the road at any point and then been pinged for the track limits scenario. But then, once you're reasonably happy with that lap, if there's still time in hand, get in, get changed to slick tyres, and then see how much grip is at your disposal. But your point earlier on, Graham, about then very much avoiding a red flag, because you'll have all your times deleted.
Absolutely.
So you can't go gung-ho and think, well, I've got nothing to lose here. Because if you end up in a gravel track and we have to go red, then that is basically back to square one.
So 11 minutes to go, and we're about to get into banker lap territory. Still there at certain parts of this circuit, almost bone dry, but then spray at other parts of the circuit. This is so tricky, particularly in these early laps. Bit of a twitch there for Lancer. How much a part of the story is he going to play? And it's sopping wet on the start-finish straight.
True.
And that will likely be, Johnny, because the grandstand is there and the wind can't get at it.
Yes, so it's very well protected, which if you're a spectator, you're pretty grateful of, but when we're trying to clean up this racetrack as much as possible, it's definitely drier on the left-hand side where all the cars are, but it's still not dry, because look at all the moisture pouring out the back of the number 30 Neil Jarney driven Duquesne now, that goes fastest though, 1:53.6, so that's a quarter of a second clear of Laurence Rour's early pace.
And we're beginning to see what we hope we'd see, which is purple sectors lap by lap. Find the grip, use the grip, look again, try again, push harder, find out where you're going to get to the stage where you have to do a bit of a Sally Jolic there, and hope that that doesn't take you out of track limits. Here comes Jan van Utrecht in the Panis racing car. His best effort is good enough for fourth. Neil Jarney, 1:53.6, but Laurens Hurt substantially quicker in the first sector on his next flying lap. So the lap times should come a-tumbling. It doesn't look like there's any further rain to come at this stage.
Look at the deep grooves on the tyres of Job van Uitert, who drives the
65.
number 65 Panis car. He's in the first sector. Now we switch to Laurence Rour, who is just heading through the middle sector right now.
He's completed the middle
final
sector.
beg your pardon, yes.
2 purple sectors. Now it's about the grip in this final sweeping right-hander. The aero, everything trying to rip the tread off these tyres. And he's going to be looking for every ounce of grip he can find. He does take it to the top by 2.5 seconds.
Neil Jarney's lap's not going to count, because I'm guessing he went wide maybe through turn 1, 2 or 3, and therefore has drawn the attention of the stewards and got one of those perilous orange dots next to the sector 1 time, which says TL, track limits within it. So Neil Jarney's going to have to wait till the next time around. Can't afford to be doing that too often, because 15 minutes sounds like a long time, but it disappears very quickly, particularly when you've got these tricky conditions at ground level, and also if you want to switch to slick tyres at some point as well, that's going to take time too.
It's often criticised single effect, well, it's a de facto single make series, with the Oreca Series 7 being so dominant here, but what you're seeing here, professional drivers, professional teams are prepared these cars, it is a head-to-head team contest, and all the richer for it. Same chassis, same engine, same gearbox, same tyres, same track, same time.
Yeah, one of the very few variables is who you've decided to plug into the car to do the business. Phil Hansen has taken a pole this year. That happened at Aragon, and it had been quite a wait for him, but now looking to try and repeat that feat if at all possible in the 22 car. He's just gone quicker than he's managed in this session through sector 1.
Laurens Hurt, meanwhile, track limits for him in sector 1, but the 2 cars behind him, James Allen now second quickest, Neil Jarney third, both having set purple sectors, with Neil Jarney 2 purple sectors, so he is up on the pole time right now. Bit of a twitch there for Phil Hansen, but he gathers that back up very quickly and continues.
And it's potentially 3.5 tenths for Neil Jarney to be quicker than Laurence Rour, who pits at the end of that lap. Now, is this the switch around? Is this Laurence Rour saying, that's about as quick as I can go on the wet weather tyres? They've offered me peak performance. Again, Phil Hansen this time, very similar to Sally Jolic in the previous session, has a squirm and a slide, but he was so reactive to it.
James Allen, if anything, quicker at this point than Neil Jarney. So we're going to see soon. Jarney goes through, only makes it to second, 6 tenths off. What can James Allen do? As he completes the lap, third quickest at the moment, 1:52.173, but he was up after second sector on the pole time. He goes top, and it's 1:50.996, just over a tenth quicker than the IDEX Sportman.
Laurens Hoare taking more wet weather tyres, so he has not been given slicks. It's just another set of wet. So clearly he radioed back saying, I can't get any more, I can't go any quicker on this current set of Goodyears, so I'll need a change. And again, this slightly longer session, 15 minutes, does allow that. They're checking also if that is Laurens's team.
It is.
Yes, it is. Are they checking maybe for a slow puncture or just basic wear and tear on those tyres?
I think they're just seeing how it's going in these conditions. Neil Jarni, by the way, a stellar first sector, 6.5 tenths up, 7 tenths up after sector 1. Can he carry that one through? It is again, though, Johnny, it's that third sector that's causing the problems here.
There was the confirmation of a wet set for another wet set, but far newer. Gilles Duquesne watching on. His man, Neil Jarni, running third fastest at this stage. Laurens Hoare rejoining the session, slipping to second after James Allen found an extra tenth to go through with a 150.996. So everyone else either in the 151s or 2s, but James Allen able to break that barrier. 5 minutes to go.
Here comes Johnny, and he's up on pole time after sector 2, 6 tenths to the good. What can he do here? He's got a car ahead of him that shouldn't be in the way for this one. He goes top, and he goes top by a tenth and a third, 150.864.
But potentially to that, James Allen can find a further 38 thousandths of a second on predicted times. Here comes James now, and he gets back into pole position, and by a larger margin. So it's half a second now in the favour of the Australian driver over the Swiss, Neil Jarni.
Yeah, 150.303 is now the mark to beat, and we've got blue sector times all over the timing and scoring screens. Job van Uite has lost a lap to track limits, so it was looking to improve the fortunes of the 65 car. So it's Algarve Pro from Duquesne, Edex Sport into Europol, Panis, Cool Racing and United Autosports. 4 minutes to go.
It's bone dry at turns 2 and 3, and the run through 4 onto that sort of medium long straight looks fine as well. I think the pivotal factor is, are you going to be able to make slick tyres work through turn 15, which is where we've seen so much power boating so far today in qualifying. And if it's far more risky that you'll either lose the car or lose a whole load of time through that very fast final corner. Probably nobody will switch to slicks now, even though a lot of the rest of the track does appear to be dry, including here, where Phil Hansen is. The glint of the sunshine there in his headlights. There is still a bit of spray coming out of the back of the car, but and then again he's sideways, but it seemed to sort of mop that up almost as quickly as it appeared. It's still very greasy at turn 15, and that shows up by the spray behind. Now more purple times, and this time from the guy who already has pole position, but by a relatively slim margin, so he'd like to extend the gap, James Allen.
Yeah, and James Allen 2 tenths up after sector 2, 3 minutes to go. No improvement in prospect immediately from Neil Jarni. Laurens Hoare will be pushing hard on the lap to follow the one he's on now. With the tyres back up to temperature, it is a further improvement, and a big improvement from James Allen. He's now 1.1 seconds clear with under 3 minutes to go. Who has got what left in the tank here, Johnny?
That tells me that he's finding a huge chunk of time in the final sector now, though, as well. So whereas the problem earlier on in LMP3 was you just couldn't rely on the downforce and the traction that you needed at turn 15, you absolutely can now. Job van Uitert starting to close the gap to James Allen as well. He's third and just a second shy of James Allen's effort.
2 minutes to go. Purple sector, Neil Jarni, sector 1, 3 tenths up on the previous best. These times are coming in big chunks. James Allen finds time 2, but not quite as much as Jarni. Is there going to be a shocker here right at the end? Ollie Caldwell right on pole position time as well. He's up into second place into Europol.
And Caldwell,
nothing in it. Nothing in it through sector 1 for the top 5 cars.
Yeah.
But Neil Jarni has a poor middle sector.
James Allen goes quicker again through sector 2, quicker than he's managed to date. So Jarni, the specialist in sector 1, James Allen loving the slower and more technical nature of the middle sector from just before turn 5 all the way to the top of the hill here. And clearly that 25 car, maybe they focused on that area during the setup of the car to say we need to be fast in the up and down section in the middle of this 4.6 kilometre circuit.
The surprise here is Phil Hansen not in this fight at the moment.
True.
And his form has been very good indeed in qualifying in recent weeks. Debut poles in both WEC and the ELMS. James Allen goes through, improves again.
So it's now a 1.2 second gap back to Neil Jarney.
Neil Jarney is the new second place car. It moves up from 4th with that lap.
Scratch that. It's now Ollie Caldwell. Now, was that a lap being deleted, or was that Caldwell going faster? He's on 149.5.
That was faster from Caldwell.
Yeah. And now Laurence Hoare will go into 3rd position in the number 28 car on his new tyres, or newer Goodyear wet weather tyres. He came in to pit part way through the session. I don't think anybody else has done that.
So both Jarney and James Allen way up on their previous best in Sector 1. But in the fight as well, Ollie Caldwell, Laurence Hoare, Job van Uitert needs a clean lap to convert the pace he's got in that car to a position here. Ollie Caldwell will not improve though. He's track limits on Sector 1. Checkered flag is out. This is the final opportunity for all these drivers, all these teams to set pole position for this penultimate race of this season. Both here this weekend at Portimão, with the first race, the race that this sets the grid for this afternoon here, Johnny.
So the checkered flag kind of waving to nobody, and then all of a sudden round the corner will come Phil Hansen to head across the line first of all. Should be an improvement from the British driver, but how far up can he go? To 4th. Provisionally, but there are quicker times potentially still to come, including from Neil Jarney and the 47 car of Richard de Guerres. No, he stays in 7th position. The flash of the lights for Neil Jarney, who will go ahead of Phil Hansen into 4th. James Allen improves again. Yes, he does. It's a 148.674, and also Caldwell with a gap 0.8 of a second now. So Caldwell was still waiting for in the 43 car. And it might be that Caldwell has pitted because his car stopped moving on my tracker. So straight to the pit lane maybe for the 43.
So what's left? Laurence Hoare, what can he do? Job van Uitert goes 3rd. Van Uitert goes 3rd briefly. Laurence Hoare just punches back though, and they're separated by 2/10. It will be James Allen on pole position from Ollie Caldwell, Laurence Hoare, Job van Uitert. Algarve Pro Racing set pole position of the 25 car from Inter-Europol competition of the 43. EDEC Sport and Panis Racing. Quite the session.
And again, success for James Allen, and his ability to adapt in very much changing conditions helped him out hugely there. It's quite a string to have to your bow, and back-to-back poles, therefore, for the 25 Algarve Pro Racing car after doing the business in Spa. Again here for the qualifying session for the 4 hours of the Algarve. And of course, if you can do it one day, then what's to say he can't do it again tomorrow for qualifying for the final round of the season on Sunday. It's a 148.674 for the Australian driver James Allen. 0.8 of a second quicker than Inter-Europol competition's Ollie Caldwell. Laurence Hoare in the 28 car, 3rd fastest for EDEC Sport, ahead of Job van Uitert and Panis. Neil Jarney's Duquesne car finishing 5th fastest. That promised a lot more actually from the Swiss. Phil Hansen 6th in the 22, and Richard de Guerres for Cool Racing will complete the LMP2 lineup. Then the LMP2 Pro AMS, and Alexander Matchell with a great result there for Team Virage. Cool Racing number 17 will start from the top of the shop in 15th position for the overall classification with Cool Racing, and then we'll work our way down to the GTs number 72 of TF Sport with their first pole of the year.
Lest we forget, by the way, 2 points to add to there. Alexander Matchell, the reigning Michelin Le Mans Cup champion until Sunday, and also that is of course pole position on home ground for Algarve Pro Racing, based literally just down the road here.
Yep.
They will be absolutely delighted. Proud British couple, prouder still to fly the Portuguese flag of their adopted nation.
And there goes the car that takes a second pole for the year, being waved into post-qualifying scrutineering. Phil Hansen walking into the back of the United Autosports garage. Possibly some work for them to do between now and the race. They may well have been concentrating on race pace, though, of course. Because it is a 4-hour race at the end of the day. You get a point for doing well in this session. You get 25 points for the latter portion of the day. And I'll remind you, in the 22, we also have Marino Sato, who tends to start the race, and Ollie Jarvis, the force that is Ollie Jarvis, in the 22 later on as well.
I think it should be called that. I think that should be...
The force that is.
Ollie the Force Jarvis. I think there's not enough nicknames in sports car races.
That's true.
Not ones we can print, anyway.
Agreed. So it'd be like the wrestling that I used to watch in the 80s, perhaps. Who would be Big Daddy?
We can't say that.
No, we couldn't possibly. That was possibly one of the names you didn't want me to mention.
Absolutely.
Here's the Duquesne car of Neil Jarney. I don't quite understand why Jarney only qualified 5th, because he was on course for a pole on many of those laps, and it didn't happen.
He just couldn't convert it. I mean,
Yeah.
he had one lap, he looked like he was doing it in a poor middle sector. Could have been traffic, could easily have been traffic. And all it needed was a bit of a wiggle, pushing the envelope, and there's a second gone right there. Giant Haystacks, by the way, would be Mo Smith, without a shadow of a doubt. And he is here this weekend.
Is he really?
He again, you know, a reigning champion until Sunday, reigning ELMS champion
It's
here,
true.
and is with Cool Racing and supporting them this weekend. Great to see ELMS Santa, and yes, he'll punch me again for that later.
You're used to it, though, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah,
I can take the
it's
knocks.
sort of a little relationship you've developed through the years. And we had great banter with him during the awards last year, I remember, on the Sunday night. A real guy of sense of humour, but also a mean racer when it comes to being on track too. A reminder that there is a race today in the European Le Mans Series. This is effectively round 2, heavily delayed from Imola. So it will start at 2:45, although we'll be on air 20 minutes before that. So 2:25. We'd like you all in position, please, for the 4 hours of Algarve in hopefully much better conditions.
Yeah, so remember the checklist: beverage, check; snacks, check; blanket for coziness, check;
Optional husky alongside.
Optional husky. Available for hire and rent at a huge cost, mainly in the snacks he requires.
Yes, that is true. So the rest of the cars now being wheeled into the rest of the cars being wheeled back into the garages. Those other ones that are needed for scrutineering will be being sent to the tent where you want to be passing all of the tests. Neil Jarney in the Red Bull helmet, in conversation with those at Duquesne, possibly a little bit puzzled as to why they couldn't quite lay the pace down. It seemed like as the track got drier,
his pace went away a bit.
The slower they were going, But here is a reminder of the overall classification then. It's a 148.6 that takes pole position in LMP2 by 0.8 of a second. Team Virage for LMP2 Pro Am Alexander Matchell, and then right in behind, also the Virage car of Manuel Espirito Santo, 9th fastest overall, and that is the point that, but that's the point that Stephen Kilby was making to you earlier on, and obviously we broadcasted that the pace of LMP3 so much more than LMP2 in rainy conditions. It's another pole for car 25. Let's get a word with one of their drivers.
I am joined by Kiffin Simpson, co-driver of the number 25 Algarve Pro Racing. Congratulations, pole position again at home. James has just put it on. He's been very quick in the changeable conditions, no?
Yeah, he's been quick all weekend in dry conditions and wet conditions. He's been quick all the time, and I mean, it's the home track. These guys know how to set up a car for here, so I think that really showed today, and showed with the 9/10 or almost 9/10 gap we had.
And the race is later on today. You'll be jumping in the car, doing a pretty big stint. How are you looking forward to the rest of the weekend?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I kind of hope it dries up. If it doesn't, oh well, we'll drive it anyway. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be exciting, and hopefully I can just continue leading and pull away maybe a little bit. And yeah, but we'll see how it goes.
All right, best of luck. We'll see you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's 2024 full season IndyCar driver. Kiffin Simpson, coming man in LMP2, James Allen on pole, Rolex 24 winner of course this year. Looking forward to the race this afternoon, Johnny.
Well, it started very, very wet for the GTEs, and a question of trying to keep the car as best you could on the track, and Arnaud Robin did that expertly well. Manuel Espirito Santo for Team Virage gets one of 2 poles for the Polish team. Alexander Matchel with the second one in LMP2 Pro-Am. But it was all about James Allen in this 25 car to take pole position for round 5 of the European Le Mans Series. That's today. 2:25 will be on air. My thanks to Graham Goodwin, Steph Wentworth. From Johnny Palmer, we will see you later on.